It's a vision of women that I don't share. If we want equality between men and women, we can't accept women covering up. I think it's contrary to the values of our country.
Well, those kinds of sentiments have convinced French sports retailer Decathlon to suspend plans to sell a range of Islamic headscarves for athletes. President Emmanuel Macron's centrist party threatened to boycott the brand, saying hijabs in sport contradict the country's secular values. Decathlon says it withdrew the product after receiving a wave of threats and insults online. But others say the company bowed to political pressure. Well, to discuss this, we're joined from Dubai by professional runner and activist Manal Rostrom, who appears in Nike's Hijab Survivor campaign. And in Abbeville, France, is Patricia Chagnon. She's a member of Marine Le Pen's National Rally political party. I thank you both for joining us here on the Newsmakers. Patricia, let me start with you. Do you believe that Decathlon made the right decision?
Decathlon was forced into this decision. There was a huge public outcry when it was announced that they were going to put these sport hijab on the market. Decathlon was only out there to make a profit, and Decathlon has no social scruples whatsoever. And yes, there was a huge outcry from the people, but also from our politicians, to immediately withdraw this from the shelves because the hijab has no place in French society.
Manal, Patricia says hijab has no place in French society. Decathlon made the right decision. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. First of all, I just want to leave, I want to differentiate between sports and politics. I think we should leave sports and leave sports out of politics, basically. And I think for a brand to come out and, publicly announce that they are not advocating the, Muslim women in sports, it's a big thing. And I don't know, for me, I was shocked, to be honest, as a Muslim female athlete who chooses to cover. I think it was just very strange. And I'm leaving politics. I'm not French. I don't live in France. But I mean, in a time where all brands are jumping on the opportunity to, advocate inclusivity, tolerance, peace, and kindness, this brand comes out and does this. It was a little bit of a shocker, to be honest.
Yeah, so Patricia, what's the problem with it? Is it the fact that it's a French brand? Because Nike sells a similar running hijab and other hijab customized sports gear in Paris, and people have no problem with that. So was it because Decathlon's a French brand and you feel somehow it's insulting your society?
We need to put the putting on the market of this sport hijab in its context by Decathlon. It was just after many anti-Semitic acts were committed in France. Many churches were destroyed, and I think it was just...
What does a woman wearing a headscarf while running have anything to do with a Jew being attacked for being a Jew?
Well, because we live in a secular society, and there has been so much aggression against Jewish people in our society and against Catholic churches that I think the French population is crying out to have our secular rules reapplied in our society.
Are you happy with a clear link being made between Muslim women who want to go for a run and people being attacked for being Jewish? By making that association that these women are responsible for that?
Of course not. No.
You just said it. That's what I'm saying. You're saying we need to put it in that context.
Listen, I didn't say that at all. I said you have to put it in the context of events taking place in society, which makes French people really want to go back to our secular society, where any demonstration of religion in the public place
but Patricia, I've spoken I've spoken to a bunch of National Front members, right? Especially when I was in France. A lot of the views of Muslim women are that these people don't want to integrate into our society. They live in their ghettos. They don't want to be a part of our society. They have a different culture, a different way of life. But if you're a Muslim woman, you want to go for a run or you want to go to the beach, then you're told, oh, no, you don't dress appropriately, and therefore what you're wearing isn't integrated with French values. So please don't play this game with us. Don't be a part of our society. Can you see how it's
yes.
constant barriers coming down for them?
No. I suppose you want my reaction to what you're just insinuating. You've got to again look at the context of things. 15 years ago, we had no demonstration of Muslim garments in the streets as we have today. We had no requests for separate swimming hours for boys and girls in schools. We didn't see little girls dressed up in the streets, little 10, 11-year-olds all covered up. We had no demands in public in school canteens for special halal meals for Muslim children. We've always been a society, a secular society, accepting everybody into our society under the condition that we accept that religion should not be brought into the public place. So I don't think there is anything wrong with Muslim women wanting to wear hijab or Muslim garments in Muslim countries. That's their choice. However, I would like to say that, for example, in Iran, we are seeing women who are going outside without headscarves.
And so listen, but Patricia, listen, you know what we do is we have segments where we have people defending the imposition of hijab in Iran, and we have people opposing that, and we debate it, right? So I don't want to actually talk about Iran and other Muslim majority countries where it's not a choice, right? And you can't really take off your hijab, because we have those debates, right? So that comparison, for the sake of this debate, can I park that off? Can you accept that I park that off? Because we have that discussion, right?
No, because I think it's important to put that.
But those French Muslim women don't live in Iran.
Can I please answer?
Sure, but they don't live in Iran, so you saying Iran doesn't mean anything.
Listen, if you stop interrupting me, maybe you can actually listen to my answer. The point that I'm trying to make is we did not have this type of very conservative attitude towards religion in France. We've always had Muslim women, and in the past this was never an issue. It's only been an issue recently in French society because of a very traditional view of Islam taking over. Right. And while women in other countries are combating this and want to be moderate Muslim women, we see in France that the more traditional view is taking over. And it's actually very problematic with moderate Muslim women in our society.
But again, Patricia, you're deciding who's a moderate and who's not, right? Because we could have a whole debate about who goes out for a run in hijab. Some traditional or conservative Muslims would consider that to be too liberal, right? But let me bring in Manal here. Manal, you've heard Patricia. You've heard Patricia.
We're in France. We're in France. So yes, we live in France.
But again, you're deciding what's moderate. You're deciding what's moderate and what's not, right, Patricia? That's on you.
I'm not.
You've decided. You said don't wear hijab, that's moderate. Wear hijab, and that's not moderate, right? Manal.
No, I'm not saying that, and I refuse the type of interview you're holding, because I'm only saying that we see in the world today, in my country today, we see a very different situation than 15 years ago. And in other
so you've said that 3 times. Let me ask Manal. Manal, do you accept that French context that Patricia is bringing up by saying that there is an increase in a sense of hostility in the culture wars between Muslims who are living in France and others in French society as defined by Patricia? And with that in mind, what Decathlon has done has rubbed people up the wrong way. Do you accept that in any way, shape or form?
Okay, I just want to briefly comment. First of all, I respect Patricia's views so much, especially that she's a native. And, she's got every right to protect her country based on her, beliefs that she grew up with. But I just need to open up a conversation that perhaps is not often addressed, or an issue that's not often addressed. I need everybody to understand, whether it's a man or woman, Muslim or non-Muslim, to understand that hijab is a compulsory form of worship. It's not an option. I know that symbolism is a big deal in France. They don't like people, for example, I don't know, I'm not sure, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that people should not be wearing a cross, the symbol of Christianity, because that would define them as Christians. And likewise, they should not be wearing the hijab because that defines them as Muslims. What I need to stress on is that a cross could be a piece of metal, fine, that symbolizes Christianity, a religion that us as Muslims we need to believe in. Yet a hijab is a compulsory form of worship that is in the Quran, that is in the holy book of the Quran, for every woman to embrace as soon as she hits puberty. And And by purity, I mean that as soon as she gets her period, and please excuse me for addressing this, every woman needs to cover up. However, she should not be forced to do it. Whether or not people were, covering up 15 years ago, or it's more like of a prominent sort of scene nowadays, I don't know about this. Like, I mean, my mom covered up when she was around 45, 47 years old. I covered up when I was 21. So the days have changed. Maybe there was more religious, like, education and nowadays, and that's why, in France, you're seeing more people who are actually covering up, and they're, prominent segments of society. Now, having said that, and cleared sort of the space for people to understand why women cover and why they should cover if they actually if they have sort of signed up for it, for a brand to come up, an international brand. First of all, I'm not bashing the brand at all. As an adventurer, as a mountaineer, as a hardcore runner and an athlete, I used to go to Decathlon to buy my mountaineering gear, for instance. You can find Decathlon in Kuwait, in Dubai, in Egypt, and obviously in France. So what I'm trying to say is that it's a global brand. So for a global brand to come up and upfront say that, they no more or no longer support Muslim women, this is a big deal for the brand. What are you trying to say? So basically your values as a brand are no longer aligned with mine. So as a consumer, then I have the right to boycott you as a brand. Okay. And this is why I think, my role is here today, why I'm taking a take on this.
Okay. Patricia, would you accept anybody else rather than Decathlon,
Hello, can you
like
hear me?
Nike, selling hijabs for runners and for other forms of activity for Muslim women?
Again, Mrs. Rostrom, I fully respect her in Dubai and as a Muslim woman and living her faith as she so chooses in her country. And I think that Mrs. Rostrom has also clearly expressed that she respects my views in trying to preserve a secular society here in France. I lived under Islamic law, Ms. Rostrom, for many years in Sudan in the 80s. I know what it is. I adapted, and I have very many friends that I made there, and I have no problem with today. I have Muslim friends amongst my friends who are maybe not covered up like you are, but certainly they believe to be very good Muslims. So
my best friend is French. My best friend is French. In fact, I spoke to her before we came here.
Yes, and I would like to show you around France and show you what the problem is in our neighborhoods where radical Islam is taking over, where other women can no longer go inside. Because the real issue, behind the Decathlon story is the fact that we don't dispute Decathlon being able to sell hijab in Muslim countries. What we're only saying is that it should not be encouraged here in France.
Okay, Patricia and Manal, you two can connect after the program. But listen, it's been interesting to delve into this a little bit with the French context. Looking forward to having more discussions with both of you in the future. Patricia Chagnon and Manal Rostrom, thanks for joining us.